Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin, we are going to begin Daf Chaf Hey, but we'll be beginning it with a new parak all the way back on Chaf Daled Amud Aleph with a new parak. Kol get shenichtav sholashim isha posel. Anytime you have a get which is not written for the sake of a woman, so then the din is it's posel. That's written l'shma. Ketzad haya oiver b'shuk. Let's say a person's on the market. The shama kol seifrim, and you hear the voice of scribes that write Gittin, and makriyan ish ploini megarish es ploinus. You hear them saying that a particular man with such a name is divorcing this woman, memakam ploini, and they're in such a location. The Amar, he says, wow, what a coincidence. Zeshmi v'zeshmi ishti posel garishbo. Let me just use this get, because that's my name and my wife's name. You can't do that because the get was already written for the sake of another person. Yasmi came, even more than that, and which the Gemara is going to explain what exactly is being added here. Let's say a person intended to divorce his wife. He changed his mind. Matzu ben Iroi, and he finds someone in the city. It almost sounds like the same thing, but apparently there's some type of chiddush over here that also in that situation, also there we're going to say the same din, that you cannot give your get, which is written for me, I can't give it to someone else. As we continue to Chaf Daled Amud Beis. Yosemi came, even more than that. Hayulo shtei noshim. Let's say a person has two wives. Ushmoisein shavos, and he married two women, and they both have the exact same name, so it's the same guy in the same location. If you wanted to divorce a older woman, it doesn't mean it's Lav Davka, it could be whoever it is, but his das was to divorce wife X. Instead, he ends up using that same get to divorce wife Y, then that's not good. Yasmi Kane. If you say to a scribe, you say to the guy that, divorce, I want you to write to whichever one you want. So it says Rashi, you can't do that because ein breira. There's no din of breira. Doamrinan hover hadavar, that'll be figured out, the b'shas ksiva hayadaita lazu, that his intention was for this woman. So again, assuming, let's say they have both names, and you just say, write it for my wife, but I'm not going to tell you which one of the wives. And then afterwards, I'm going to decide. You can't do that because we say in Brera. Says Gemara. So let's say a person wrote a get for his wife, and then he changed his mind and he gave it to someone else. So the Ela Reisha B'mai, what exactly is this different? It seems like the second case is identical to the first. So Papa b'seifrim hasuyin lihislamid askinan. We're talking about scribes that are doing this to learn. So they're not really writing the get for anyone at all. So because that's what they're doing, that's what the point is. That even though it wasn't really written specifically for a particular woman, nonetheless you can't use it. It says that the Seifrim are teaching, that they're writing or reading. Shmamina. Says Rashi, Makriyan means teaching. That they're teaching their students. Kach v'kach, this is how you do it. Kishiyavu get lefanechu, when a get comes in front of you. Kosvehu, you should write it. V'hezechriu shem inish be'alma. They just wrote down some person's random name. Alma betalmidim askinan. It's obviously we're talking about, again, that he's just doing it to teach his students. And the chiddush is that also can't be done. So my yasumi kain. So what is this addition? That's, even in this case, it's possible. So Tana Rabbi Shmuel, loze shenichtav shloshim gershin, not the first case in which it was written not for the sake of gershin, el avzeh, because it was just to teach them how to write. El avzeh, even this case, shenitloshim gershin, posel. So in this situation, they did have the intention to write it for a gerushin, and then they changed their mind. Not only in a case where it was written not for the sake of gershon for this man, in the case where there's two wives. So the get was written for the sake of this man to divorce his wife, but he had two wives. So it's possible because it wasn't written for a particular woman, and as we said, ein brera. And the Mishnah then says even further, so not only the situation where, okay, it was not written with Shem Gershon, El Avzesh and Nitl Shem Gershon ha apostle. So my timer. So why, in fact, in all these situations, it is apostle. So Ikasav V'Nasan Sever Krisos Biyada. So if it's because the pasuk says V'Kasav V'Nasan, then you have to write the get and give it to her, Sever Krisos Biyada Hava. Biyada. So Hava Mina Lemuti is coming to exclude Heich Kama, this first situation, because it wasn't even done L'Shem Krisos, it was just done to teach people how to write. His students, but if he actually did intend to divorce his wife, and he changed his mind, and he found someone else, the get was written L'Shem Krisos, so maybe it would be good. It has to be that the husband is the one who is instructing it to be written. So over here, the guy had it written, but he changed his mind. He can't give it to another man. So maybe it's only going to exclude that second case. So he said because he's not the one who wrote it. It wasn't written for him at the time of the Ksiva. If he had two wives, he actually had to get written for himself, and he's actually divorcing someone. Again, he's going to end up divorcing woman Y instead of woman X. And it has to be for the woman, the particular wife in mind. So it's coming to tell you the din of ein brera. Okay, fine. Weiter. So then the Gemara continued. The Mishnah said that Kasav Garshas Gedayla, if a person wrote to divorce the older one, and then he changed his mind, Li Garsh Bosa Katana. So Katana who Dolo Matzi Megarshbe. So the younger one he's not able to divorce. Hagadol Matzi Megarshbe. But apparently he is able to divorce the older one because his intention was to do so. Says Rashi, V'chim mafkele loy chashina, because once it's out, we're not concerned with Isser Eshasish. We're not going to say, well, maybe he actually had the get written for the other one, but Nafal Miyada, and it fell from her hands, Umatsaso Zu, and the other one's going to find it, and she'll think she's divorced when she's really not. That we basically are saying that, again, they have the same name, it was given to the right woman. In that situation, we're not concerned because the fact that someone else has the same name, because she's going to be holding on to her get. Omer Rabbi Zosamaris, we can actually derive from this that also by Shnei Yosef ben Shimon, if you have two men with the exact same name, Hadarim be'ir achas, and they live in the exact same city, they're able to give out a document of debt to the others. Says Rashi. Fine. So, and that's the point, because you can always say, well, maybe the shtar chol was for the other person. So it doesn't matter that there's two people with the same name, but the reality is that you're going to be holding on to this document, and it's not going to get confused with the other person in the city. Just like we're not going to say it's an issue with regard to the woman, the co-wife. If that's the case, Reisha, our second case, where he wrote the get for himself and then he changed his mind that it doesn't work, the Katani Shemi Kashimcha Apostle Garshbai. So we say, hey, I know you want to divorce your wife. We have the same names. I changed my mind. Here's a beautiful get. Why don't you use it? So it's possible. So Sheni Hu Dolo Matzi Megarshbe. The second guy doesn't work. Harisha Matzi Megarshbe. However, the first one, because it was written for him, so he could divorce. But didn't we learn Amrina, we said v'lo acher yachol haitzelein l'shtar chayim. Now let's look at Rashi. That's a question. Rashi explains this? Rashi says b'masnisin to get poshet. It's brought down toward the end of Masechtas Baba Basra, when you have Shnei Yosef ben Shimon, Shahoy bir Achas, you have two people who have the exact same name and they live in the exact same city. No one can collect from him. No one can produce a shtar chayiv against him. I didn't borrow from you. Is the other guy. So according to this, we're saying that it's not true. That if there's two people the same name and two people in the same city, that the din is unlike what we established. We see clearly that the din is that you cannot collect from it. Hachinami, so too, in our case, says Rashi, Lema lo ba'ala kosvoi. My husband didn't write it. El Yosef Shimon acher kisel ishtay. It was a different one. But Nimloch, he changed his mind. Lo girsha, he didn't divorce me. Ibud madas. Fine. So why don't we say chayra? We shouldn't say it works. Ella ma'isach We're going to say. So why does it work by Gittin? Because be'ed masir of Rebbe Lezer because we hold that it's totally on the witnesses. Says Rashi, Shemakir es shnehem, they will recognize them. Ume'idin, they'll testify Shiroy lazeh. When it comes to the signatures, we don't rely on. You're right. When it comes to the document itself, maybe we don't hold of it. The Eidi Chasima we don't hold of because of this chash. But over here, it's Eidi Masira. And therefore, because that's the reason why the get is going to be kosher in this situation. So too, we can say over here. So it's not a proof that our Mishnah, our Mishnah, Zosameres, since here there were Edim Asira. Rebbe Lezer Amrav Kulan. Okay, let's look at question 9. The first guy who wrote it, so according to Rav Meir, who holds Eidi Chasima Karti, Eidi Chasima, it's puzzle, because just like we said by a Shtar Chov, who have the same names in the same city, you're not allowed to collect from them, because you can't rely on this shtar, because you can always say, it's not mine, I don't owe you money, so you can say that this get isn't referring to her. If Edim Masira, however you hold Edim Masira, according to Rebbe Lezer, then it is kosher. So that will be the important distinction between those opinions. Okay. Weiter. So the Gemara continues and says as follows: Amarav, Kulon Poislin B'Kuhuna. All of these cases that we mentioned, said Rashi, Kol Gittin Hashnuyin B'Mishnasenu. Everything that was mentioned in our Mishnah, all these cases, Alpha Piship Sul Negaresh Lahatirin Lahinase, even though we say it's puzzle, her get, and she's not allowed to get remarried. Poislin Hein Oisa Mina Kahuna Im Bala Koyin. If her husband is a Kohen, we're still going to say that now she's going to be puzzled to him. Nifsala Mishim Garusha, which is pretty unbelievable. Even though it's not a get, so therefore she should just go back to her husband, everything is fine. But the din is that she, on some level, because it has the smell of a get, it appears to be like a good get, and therefore because of that, we're going to say it is a problem. That therefore she is going to, in fact, be apostle to kahuna. Chutz min harishon, excluding the first case of our Mishnah that was just pasha, that was just you found a get lying in the street. So when it came to that, that is the exception. Says Rashi, shul nichtal l'shem gershon klal, because it was actually not even written for gershon, as we said. Rather, it was students that were just learning how to write a document. So in that situation, it's nothing. So we can say that she's not going to be pasal to kahuna. Abul Hanach Basroi, the other cases, pasli, the reach haget pasal kahuna, because it smells like a get, has a reach haget, and that will pasal to kahuna. As we see later on, ha'imr le'ishto, if you say to your wife, hurry up and garashis mimeni, you are divorced from me, but you're not allowed to be married to anyone else. And the very last line of a get is Hari Muteres Choladam. So a get has to have that. So Pasal min kahuna, even though the truth it's not a get, because it's not a krisus, because you're saying that she's still usher to other men, so it's not a valid get, but because it has the reach get, we say a Pasal min kahuna. Shnemar v'isha gerusha mi'isha. Even in a situation who's a woman who's only divorced from her husband, she's only separated from her husband, but she's not mutter to other men, still is psula kahuna. So that's the twist. If a man writes on a get that you'll be divorced from me, and you'll be usher to everyone else, so the din is it's not a get, but still it's enough of a get that she's going to be puzzled to kahuna, which basically means, again, they're married, even if, let's say, he subsequently dies, the reality is she's not an almana, she's kalachale, like a garusha. Okay, so that is with regard to everything except for the first case, because it wasn't even a get, it was just written just to learn. It was not even written for any purpose other than that. Chutz min harishon, Shmuel emer af harishon. Nami Pasal. Even the first case, in all situations, we say it has a reach get. Even the situation where the get is found in the shuk, the din still applies the same. Yosef Shmuel Tameid. Yomer Shmuel, Kol Makom Sheshanu Chachamim get Pasal. Anytime the Chachamim say a get is invalid, Pasal upoisal. Even though the get is Pasal, it will still invalidate her from being able to eat truma. Chalitza Pesula. In the event that Chalitza took place, she also will be Pasal. Pesula upasalta, when the get is Pasal, it'll still Pasal her min achen, from the other brothers. B'marava Amri Mishmei Rabbi Lezer, in Eretz Yisrael was said in the name of Rabbi Lezer that Smoil v'Laila Pasulos upoislois. So what is small? Says Rashi, cholza was small. If you did chalitza using the left hand, says Rashi psula v'chein cholza b'layla psula. Also, if you did it with not just the removal of the shoe with the left hand, or maybe it's the left foot, but regardless, it has to be with the right. And also, if it was done at night, it's not valid. But even though it's Pasulos, it's not a valid chalitza, upoislois. She'll still be puzzle, says Rashi, upoiselos to shame chalitza Allah. It has like a reach of chalitza. Shelo nasis b'kshera, it wasn't done properly. Therefore, regular b'matzayra, dixiv yamanis v'layo nami nafgal and hasam. It says regel b'matzayra, so it has to be on the left. It cannot be on the left, it has to be on the right. Just like Matzayra, the applications are boyhen yado hayamonis, it's on the right earlobe, thumb, and right toe. So too, when it comes to the chalitza, it has to be on the right. It's probably referring to the right foot. So, even though that's true, we still say you'll be pasal tekuna. So we find this element of the reach haget. Okay, as we continue to the daf that we're supposed to have started on, Chaf Hamad Alf. Katan, let's say you have a katan that performs chalitza, the anpilya, or it was done with some type of a sock on the foot, psulos, that also will pasal. However, ein poislois, it will not pasal her from truma, and the reason is because this is like so far removed from chalitza. It wasn't even, not that everything was done properly, just used the wrong. It was on the left instead of the right, or it was done at night instead of the day. Here you have a katan, so she's not shaykh. Or if you were wearing something on as like a sock, that certainly is so far off, it doesn't have the reach of chalitza. All of the cases, so one part said that all of them will pasal her to kahuna except for the first case. Then we said no, all of them will pasal to kahuna. Now we're saying only the last case, which we said where a person said to the scribe, write to whichever one you want. So again, that's all totally if we hold in brera. Mishnah holds in brera. So on this, Ravasi kulon in poisel chutz min acharon. Only the last case will she be puzzled, because it mamish looks like a get. It's just because we say in brayer that it's not. Now, even the last one is not poisel. So again, you have your whole slew of opinions. And Rabbi Yochanan goes to his reasoning. When you have brothers that divide, they're considered to be like lukuchais, says Rashi. The ein breira, the ekel amecha shchelik shenatel zeh hayroyel achiv lachlifai. So this is so ha'achim shecholku lukuchais hein umachzirin zel zebayovel. So this is breira. This is ein breira, that this wasn't given as a Yerusha. Since it was not given as Yerusha, so they have to give it back at Yovel. So when it comes to a din of a purchase, so then there's a din of Yovel. It's mechazer, but Yovel. So therefore, we see again. Rashi says the ein breira the ikol mecha shchel shenatel zeh haYroyel achiv was fit to the other brother. Achlifa was given to the other one. So it doesn't have a din of Yerusha. And since it doesn't have a din of Yerusha, it also there it's the din is that it is machzir and zelz and Yovel. It does go back, as opposed to Yerusha. So we see when it comes to this case, we see again this concept of ein breira sricha. So then you say we need this. The ein marbaha b'hakam Rabbi Yochanan the ein breira. Maybe only here does Rabbi Yochanan say when it comes to the din of brothers who divide that we don't say breira mishum debi'inan. When it comes to our case, rather we're talking about Gittin mishum debi'inan lo l'shma, because the pasuk says it has to be l'shma, and therefore you can't just tell the scribe, just do whatever you want. No, it's got to be written for the right woman. When it comes to sales, the Torah says, maybe it should revert back by Yovel, because maybe it has a din Yerusha. Let me read this again. Only when it comes to a mecher does it go back. When it comes to Yerusha, it's not. So maybe it does have a din of a Yerusha. So when it comes to the case of the field, maybe we're just going strict that the fields go back to the beginning, and therefore that's the reason why we say, okay, fine, give it back. They should go back. Just because we're going to be strict, we don't know, so we'll go strict. Over here, by this woman, it doesn't passel her, which is a kula kamashmon. Okay, that's why it's tzricha. Let's say a person says to a scribe, I want you to divorce whoever comes out of this doorway first. Says Rashi, hey, haget l'shma, the get will be l'shma for her, u'shmosehem hayu shavin, and everyone's names are the same, mahu. So yesh breiro ein breiro. So amrulei tenisua. Yasmikan amrulav or kasav eizeh shirtze a garish posel garish boy. So we say that if you say to a scribe, just write it to whichever one it is, alma in breira. So over here also in breira, you can't say write me the get, and whichever woman goes out first is going to be the woman I want divorced. If a person says to his sons, Hareini Sheikhet has Pesach, I'm going to shech the Pesach only al mi shiala mikem rishon Yerushalayim. I want to see who the fastest one is. Whoever can get to Yerushalayim first. That as long as the first one comes up, Rosh Harubo, then he'll be Zayche. However, the truth is, Umazakas Echav Imoy. He was also Mazaka everyone else together with him. So here we see Yesh Breri had no idea which son was going to come. So Beri Ma'im Psachim Eitzel Gittin. What does one have to do with the other? The whole purpose was just to get them excited to do a mitzvah, to run to do the Karm Pesach. The father had in mind actually all of his sons, so there is no issue of breira here at all. It says that everyone else also was able to get. Now, If you want to tell me that the father had all the children in mind, that's why they can all be zoich in it. Now, if let's say he didn't have any intention of them, so mi kamishamnu, how could they be included? But not nimnin u'moishchin yedehim mimenu ad sheyishachet. So he says you have to be nimnin ad sheyishachet. Says Rashi, avol achar shchita loy nimnin. It has to be that you had them in mind before the shchitas carbon. So therefore, obviously, the fact that he did this was only in order to mizares. And we see this elsewhere. This is brought down in other places in Masechta and Yoma. Tanya nami hachi masav v'kadmu b'nais l'banim. So he did this. Some guy did the same thing, and the daughters were faster than the sons. V'nimsu b'nos rizus. We find that the boys were, the girls were quick, and the boys were a little bit lazy. It says Rashi, it doesn't say that only the boys, the girls got and the boys didn't. No, they all got. So the whole reason why he did this was only to create some level of alacrity to get them to go quick, but it wasn't in any way a raya of breira. Amar by cowboy mine. So this question was posed. Toila b'das acherim, v'kapashit toil b'das atzmai, v'hada moisel toil b'das acherim. So it's left up to the woman who comes out of the door first. This is das acherim. So he said, the whole question is, whoever comes out first will be divorced. So this is actually not the man. This is considered das acherim because the woman is the one that comes out first. But the Mishnah case is your own das of uncertainty, right? You have where the scribe, you say you have to write to the scribe. The scribe writes to whoever he wants, right? So in that situation, that's not the same thing. One case is das acherim, which again is whichever woman comes out first. So the woman is the das acherim. So how the kapashit le toil b'das atzmo, and we try to answer it with case of das atzmo v'hada moisel le toil b'das acherim. So what are we doing over here? So I'm Rabbi my kush. What's the whole question? Dilma mandis le breira lo shna toil b'das atzmo lo shna toil b'das acherim. Isle breira. One holds a breira. It doesn't make any difference if it's you or someone else involved. Who doesn't hold it? So maybe there's no difference between toil b'das atzmo or das acherim, whether you hold a brera or not. You'll hold it either way, or you won't hold it either way. I'll show you that Rabbi Yehuda holds that when it comes to your own das, he does not hold a brera, but for some reason, but when it comes to others, uncertainty of others, he does hold a brera. How do we see this? So brera did not. The Sanyan, we've seen this in so many places, in Shas, famously in Sukkah, in Erevin, Baba Kama, okay, so many places. So a person bought wine among the kutim, and therefore it's questionable, were they mafresh chubos and maisus? And Rashi says this was kaidim gezerah. This was done before the decree. You don't have another kli to be mafresh, so all you have is this. You want to drink. The kusim geri ms chashivahu. They're considered they're 80 ms. The geri ms. However, v'hein chashudin al maisus al truma. These kutim, we were suspect that they don't separate properly. Okay. As Rashi says, kutim are chashudim al hakoil, on everything. So when you buy it, you have to separate meiser vadai. So what do? Then you don't have another kli to put it. So you say like this. Oyimer shnei lugin b'shani yosid l'hafresh, two lugin which I'm going to eventually separate, harihin truma. That will be considered to be truma, which is like 1/50th. Meiser rishain. So, and now you have like 98. So, Meiser Rishain, Tisha. So, you end up taking what's left, which is 10%, which ends up like 9. Meiser Shane, and then Meiser Shani, and you do the same thing when it comes to separating Meiser Shani, so we continue to Chav Hayam and Beis. Meichel B'Shaisem Yad. So, we say that it works just by your own words alone, and we say it's fine. and you can drink this right away, Dibra Meir. Now, Rameir must hold a brera, that the fact that you could do this, even though it didn't essentially separate it, we can say that what you ate or drank in this situation is chulin, is separated, and everything else, whatever's, let's say, remaining, so that will be what was you separated. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Oisrin, but all three of them, maybe, hold that you cannot do such a thing. It must be, we see clearly, ein brera. So this is a case that even with toila bedas atzmo, this is yourself doing this, making this declaration about this food, about this drink, it doesn't work because ein brera. So we see Rabbi Yehuda holds bedas atzmo ein brera. Weiter, in toila bedas acher, when it comes to you relying on the uncertainty of someone else's actions, isle brera. So we see that we do split it. How do we find that Rabbi Yehuda holds a brera? None. Ma'alehi ba'oisan hayomim. What will be with regard to these days? So what's this referring to? So Rashi says, Ze gitech, if a man says, this is your get, miachshav, from this moment, imati mechoyli zeh, if I die from this sickness, how is a get? It's a get. Imes ma'oiso choyli, if in fact he dies from the sickness. So mahi koi miachoyli, what will it be for her all of these days of his sickness? Is she considered to be like retroactively have been divorced? She's considered to be an Ashes Ish regarding all matters, says Rashi. Im Kohen hu. So let's say he's a Kohen, Ochelos betruma. She's still allowed to eat truma because we say that she's still married. Vim zintza bechenek. And she'd be violating Ashes Ish if she committed adultery and get the punishment of strangulation. Umechi mayas havigita, and only from the time that he dies is it considered to be a get. It's not that she was divorced retroactively. Says Rashi, tiny reisha har is a get. Why is he saying this? Alma will Paul Bereisha. Must be he's not arguing with the reisha, skipping a few lines. This is not like a typical condition. That when you made a condition, niskayim hatanai havi get l'mafreya. Normally you would think, okay, there's a condition, and as soon as it worked, so then the get should have been retroactively from the time the get was given. That's when it is. But over here, it's not that way. We're saying only when he dies is it a get. So what's the difference? The hasam over there will have time of mishum breiruhu. The reason why we say works of my friend is nothing to do with breira. Avohacha the in biyadol v'shas hatanai who's savik v'tanai miskayim elav imlav mishum breira will having get machayim. So basically, he's saying that in this situation it's not biyadoi. So if it's not biyado, we can't say this tanai works on mafreya. They're only going to work mikan labah. So here, this is dasacherim that there is breira since it's up to Hashem if he'll die of this sickness. So we see when it comes to the din, so therefore it is considered to be a get. So so what do we see when it comes to the case of Lokech Yain Bebein Hakutim? We see the Rabbi Yehuda holds ein breira, but over here he holds that there is breira. So Amalei Rav Sharsha Rava Ha Rav Shimon the Toyel Badas Atzmo. Rav Shimon, who we say that Toyel Badas Atzmo, when it comes to his own das, Leisle Breira, which is what Rav Shimon said above, Rav Shimon Oisrin. So, Leisle Breira, but Toyel Badas Acherim Isle Breira. I'll show you that, again, that he holds that there is Breira when it comes to Das Acherim. Toyel Badas Atzmo Leisle Breira Hada Amran. We saw that, again, when it came to this being mafresh with your dibor, the Trumas and Maestros, so Rav Shimon, just like Rabbi Yehuda, apparently says, no, you can't do it. Because even by Das Atzmo, the din is there's no brera. But Toba Das Acherim Isle brera. How do we see this? This Sanya. Hareini Boalech Al Manas Shiyirtz Abba. So he says, I will be your husband with this bia, says Rashi, l'shem kedushin the isha niklas b'bia, on condition that your father agrees afterwards. So this is, we don't know what the father's going to do, and this is totally on das acherim, or whether the father will agree to all this. Now, we said even if the father doesn't want us a kedushin, Rav Shimon ben Yehuda Omer, Mishum Rav Shimon, Ratza Av Mikudeshes. If the father wanted this, it's Mikudeshes. Lo Ratza Av Ein Mikudeshes. So we see that Das Acherim, that if the father agrees, and only if the father agrees, there's a din of Breira. Says Rashi on the previous Amud, the Ein Adam Oisa Bi'ilaso Bi'os Nos. He says, no, even if the father doesn't want it, it's Mikudeshes, because the guy doesn't want his Bia to be Biznos. He really wanted to be a Kedushin regardless of whether the father wanted. Because he doesn't want his Bia to be Biznos. However, according to Rav Shimon, no. It's totally in whether or not the father wants or not. So what do we see? Again, this is a situation of, it's a suffix. It's of what the father wants. That's das acherim. Says Rashi, v'afal gav dibishas beila suffix ratza suffix in a raitza. We don't know if the father wants at the time that he had the bia. I'm reading hoover dibishas beila havi kedushin. So we see again a situation that we do make a distinction whether we say breira or ein breira, whether it's das acherim versus das atzmo. We see that by das atzmo ein breira. We see by das acherim yesh breira. Sarmuleno, Ben Rabbi Yehuda ben Rav Shimon, Loshna Toil B'das Atzma, Loshna Toil B'das Acherim, Isilhu Breira. They always hold a Breira. What are you talking about? They hold a Breira, but we just mentioned this case of the person who wants to be able to separate Chumas and Maestros, that they say you can't do it. Now, the reason has nothing to do with Breira, why they say you can't do it. Amrulil Rameir, Iyata Moida Shemi Yibaka Hanoi Benimsa Zeshaisa Tavolo Mafreya, Amlohem Kishiyabaka. So he said, aren't you concerned that you do this, and let's say you ate everything, and all of a sudden the jug with all the wine breaks, and then you didn't end up, Mafreya, you end up really giving any of the Trumas and Meisters away, because, and you end up eating Tevel Mafreya. So he said, okay, if that happens, it happens. The point is, that this whole point of whether or not you could do this by the yayin mebena has nothing to do with breira or ein breira. Maybe the only reason is because of the concern of shibibaka annoyed that this thing may break. However, maybe what the mitzias is, they always hold of breira, and therefore again the maskana we're saying that if you hold a breira, you'll hold a breira whether it's das atzma or das acherim, and if you don't hold like breira, you'll say there's in breira by, if there's even by das atzma or das acherim, we're not machalik. Okay, we did a lot, but we're going to stop there. Let's see a couple more questions. Question 10. Ze gitech miachshav. This is straight from Rashi. This is your get from now. So he said that if you made that condition, let's look in the Gemara really quick. Right, so fine. So we brought this case down in Rashi that I'm giving you a get now on condition if I die of the sickness. And so we say that yes, he is going to right. So this Rashi is saying that in that situation it's a get l'mafreya. So madua imes machayos esarach livrei l'chalos hagerishin v'chikol tanai sarach libreira. So he says kishe hisnoi, when you made this condition enum biyadol l'kaimo, it wasn't in your hands to be mekayim this. It's not up to you whether you're going to die of this illness. It's up to Hashem to decide if you're going to die of the sickness. El meskayim me'elav sarach breira loy meshachol l'mafreya. So that's the distinction, that if it's something which is not even biyadai. So let's look at this Rashi one more time, because this is an important Rashi. So he says, Havi get l'mafreya. The husam lav time mishum breira. Avahacha de in biyadai. It's not in your hands. The b'shas hatanai. And when you made this condition regarding if I die of the sickness, who's suffix, you have no idea what God's going to do. Vatanai miskayim me'elav. The tanai ends up happening on its own. It's has nothing to do with you. Ilav mishum breira lo havi get michayim. So therefore, again, the whole point is that since it's not biyadai, that's the reason why we make a distinction there. TA 23. Okay. Halokeach mebena kutim. So heich misyashiv im divrei Rabbi Yehuda she'omer mahi b'oisa hayomim hari keshes ish ulachi ma'asil agita muchach tasfil yesh brera. So over here, it seemingly holds ein brera. Long question for just real in the havamina. The Rab Mishar she'atol b'das atzmo ein brera. So we thought it was totally on that. The maskana shani ma'isa chashem shem yibroka hanoid. So again, I got this half right. I probably got this piece correct about shem yibroka hanoid, which is the maskana. But again, the whole reason why we brought this down is dafka in order to be able to maybe make a distinction that when it comes to a case of das atzmo, it's up to you. So we see it's oisrin, right? So he holds it's oisrin. So we see it's because of das atzmoi. He holds in brera by das atzmoi. So that's TA 23. TB 24. Zegitich mi'achshav imotim b'chol Madua imes mecholize sarach lavreira l'chalos l'gershin v'chi kol tonight sarach lavreira. So it's exactly the same question as question 10. This is on Chaf Hamad Beis TB 24. Let me just mark this down and let's see what I wrote. It's not in your hands. Adkan.